Hi guys, welcome back to the Triad of Justice. To begin with, I would like to tell you about our project, which is about raising awareness on sexual offences and why it is important to prioritize them. Today's video is about an interview we had with Miss Zoya, a psychologist at our school who is involved in matters related to making people more aware of sexual offences and is against the unfairness happening to victims. What are the factors that lead to sexual offence?
There are multiple factors, minor factors that kind of lead to the final way it's manifesting in society. So it starts with it's like a hierarchy. At the bottom of it are gender discrimination, pay discrimination at workplace, or even jokes that we make with sexual connotation against genders. It has a lot of aggressive content in it. The way we resort to just using these slang words, abusive words, that has a lot of aggression against the one particular gender. And then on top of it are, our ideas about consent. It's okay to approach someone even if they say no, or assuming silence to be as yes. And on top of that are, physical violence, groping, harassment in workplaces, in public spaces. And then the final one that you see on the top is rape. So all things are normalizing of the entire rape culture. It starts from bottom and goes on to the top. And even peer pressure as a factor is the culture of the classroom, culture of peers, such that it's an imperative thing to come of age. Do you have to have a sexual intercourse for you to be considered popular or of a certain age or certain group? And is there an underlying mental illness? Is there some kind of disorder, some kind of learning disability? Is the child on the autism spectrum, which makes the child difficult to understand what is appropriate and inappropriate behavior, to learn someone else's social cue? How is it that I understand this person is giving me consent or not? These are the things that could be looked into.
How do you think being sexually offended could impact someone's mental health in various ages?
So, being a victim of sexual abuse could impact multiple aspects. One being the self-esteem, the control they have over their own body, feeling like you're losing your autonomy, feeling a sense of helplessness at different stages, and mostly it shows up in your adulthood, in your young adulthood, when you're exploring relationships. It comes in, it seeps in your intimate relationship, the way you have the potential to be intimate with your partner, being vulnerable with your partner, with your own body. All of these are things that gets impacted when you have an experience of sexual offense or sexual abuse.
How can you create a safe environment when discussing such issues with the victim?
Okay. First thing is to not to deal with such stories as a case study or for you to make your research on. Treat it as stories of humans who have gone through a lot of atrocities, of humans who have their autonomy and the human rights being stripped off of them. So give them their own timeline to talk about it. Give them their own autonomy, how they want to speak about it. Avoid victim blaming. Avoid things that make them responsible and kind of take away their sense of control from them. Give them a non-judgmental, warm environment, and let them speak when they want to, how they want to, and then re-narrate the whole story, in their own manner.
What are the traumas they face?
Okay, there are multiple traumas in different aspects, different domains of their personality and their life experiences that they struggle with. First is again the body image issues, being able to reclaim their own body, sometimes being disconnected from their body, not being able to be in your own body in peace. Your self-image gets affected, the way you show up in your relationships, and be able to be vulnerable in your own intimate relationship, that gets affected. Reclaiming certain spaces, certain clothes, when victims were abused or exploited when they were in a particular attire or in a certain situation, it becomes difficult for them to go there, reclaim that space. And there are a number of flashbacks that comes. Your body starts behaving in a certain manner when you're reminded of those triggers. So these are some ways it can show up in your life when you're a victim.
How do you deal with their trauma in a therapeutic environment?
So for a victim of any kind of sexual offense, it includes a lot of body work, a lot of somatic work, so that it becomes easier for them to be in their own body. A lot of thought work, a lot of feeling work might not work well for them. The primary aim is for them to feel relaxed, feel at ease in their own body, feel connected with their own body, listen and be in touch with their bodily processes. That's one thing that needs to be incorporated. And providing them a safe space for them to re-narrate their entire process, avoiding blaming, avoiding shaming, providing a non-judgmental space. And even factors like the physical structure of the therapeutic setting, the therapy room needs to be such that the client doesn't feel trapped over there. So when a client enters, is there a barrier between the therapist and the client? Is the therapist a male, which could also trigger sense of unsafety? Being mindful about these little things. How is the therapist position? Is the therapist someone who is dominating, bringing out that feelings of helplessness for the client? Can you provide a non-judgmental safe space where the client can take the lead of their own sessions and just be a facilitator for them? For someone who could end up, being an offender, or when you notice gender-based discrimination, when you notice gender-based microaggressions or ideas or stereotypes of such in your session, it's important for us as therapists to gently call them out, to confront them, to mirror these ideas and to see where it's coming from. Why is the client holding on to it? Do they have their own voice? Is their voice stronger, or is the voice of the culture of these stereotypes?
How can you make others aware of sexual offences?
So it starts from school, it starts from educating our children about what a safe touch is, what unsafe touch is, what is consent, how do you approach a person, what are your limits, what are your boundaries. Also educating about the consequences that they can get into, the legal consequences as they go to their adolescence, giving them safe spaces of how to interact with people of the opposite gender, people of the same gender, what is their limits. And then in institutions, in workspace, in school areas, or in any other organizations, having safety protocols, knowing who to go to when something of this sort happens, where can you reach out, and what kind of actions can be taken. Making a space where any kind of sexual offense or exploitation is not tolerated.
What are the factors which push an adolescent into risky sexual behavior?
So there are a number of factors that we could look into, starting from home. Is the child being monitored at home? Is the child being neglected at home? Is the child being exposed to any kind of sexual abuse at home? So what happens at home, the child also ends up replicating it outside. Is there any kind of peer pressure? Is it a notion, a culture of coming of age in the classroom, in the school, that when you attain this age, it's necessary, it's imperative for you to have sexual intercourse, to have any kind of risky sexual behavior? Or is there an underlying undiagnosed mental disorder? Is there some kind of disability? Children with learning disabilities, children on the autism spectrum might have difficulty.
Have you ever met a person who has been through sexual trauma?
So by sexual trauma, we don't just mean victims who have been forced into sexual encounters without the consent. It's also minors, it's also youngsters who engage in risky behavior without appropriate information, without awareness. So one such client that I'm reminded of is a young girl of like 14 to 15 years who engaged with sexual relationship, with the sexual act with another child of around the same age, and ended up being pregnant. So this was also a child who had to drop off from school as a consequence of all of this. This also comes under trauma. So the way I dealt with it was, first step is psychoeducating the child about what is consent, is it the right age for you to engage in such activities, what all are the different channels that you can use to engage with the person of the opposite gender, and how is it that she can go back to school, how can she reclaim her entire adolescence and childhood back again.
How were you affected by this victim's trauma?
So it made me reflect about my own privileges, right? Privileges of being in a place where it's more or less safe, being in an institution or organization that would take my complaint, if ever being sexually offended, that would take my complaint seriously and would take actions against it. Privileges of my class, of my the social group I come from. So it's easier for me to access information on sex education, on consent, on what are the grievance channels I can go to if ever facing that experience. So this was a girl who had no awareness about healthy sexual behavior, about channels she could go to, who could not talk too easily to her parents about this topic, who could not be monitored that well. So these are the privileges that I was thinking about. How was this child away from it? How was this child not being able to have access to these privileges? And the pure sense of grief that this child had to lose her childhood through this process. And how would the culture and the people around her react? Would they be accommodating of her? Would they treat her like a child? Would they be sensitive to her needs? Some things that came to me.
What are the changes you would like in society, and how would you approach your ideas relevant to sexual offences committed?
Okay, some of the changes that could be done at the society level is starting at your homes, teaching our boys how to regulate their emotions, how to express anger in a better manner, how to express it in a healthy manner, giving open spaces to children to come and share about their experiences of feeling unsafe, not just with strangers but also with people at their home. Not normalizing children who wouldn't like to be touched in a certain way, even by a family member. Listening to them, being open to them, trusting them, and providing sex education in schools, providing information about the concept of boundaries, about safe and unsafe touch, about consent. These are some things that could be done at different levels. Also connecting children emotionally to any kind of adverse experiences helps, through storytelling, through reading books of people who have undergone any kind of sexual offense and abuse, brings out empathy for the children.
Okay guys, that's it for today. I hope this video was informative and allowed you to learn something useful. Join us in the fight for truth and justice at TOJ. Together, we can make a difference.